Hello, so this is literally the most popular topic from last year on the Deep Thinker Reddit, and it's literally just sharpening the guillotine. Which line of thinking is getting more and more popular? We must stop thinking in terms of left and right, Republican versus Democrat. We must start thinking in terms of us versus the oligarch. Yeah, but this whole voting is just a show. I mean, if people just voted their self-interest, you would have equality every election. This would be self-evident self-interest. I'm not saying that your vote is entirely worthless, but it is just a show. Albeit your vote can be totally worthless, depending on the country. The problem is, the oligarch is very good at selling people the fantasy that they actually have a chance of becoming part of the 1%. Well, I would argue most people have no power. And those who have even a little bit of power are kind of afraid of rocking the boat, so they end up with no power at all. So if you have something, then you're probably very kind of scared. Not perhaps about things that would be scary to your life, but you're kind of afraid of like losing your position. And your position is a total joke compared to those who have it good, but still much better than most people. It's a position, I suppose. So they vote against their own interests in the illusion that it'll be them one day. Yeah, but like the thing is, like if you can actually own the media as the elite and get people to vote for what you want, what you tell them to vote for, essentially, isn't that messed up? I mean, suppose you wanted to go with this, then I would go with like, let's just have like a long list and you can just vote for your self-interest. You just mark your self-interest and that's it. Right? You don't need parties. You don't need anything. And also, many things would be just self-evidently true. Because if you like took a guy and like, what would you choose? $1 million or $10? Like, I would choose the $1 million. Yeah. And they're only not choosing that because they don't have a choice. They have no power. A generation after generation, a new sucker is born every day after all. Right. I don't like this because you're kind of pointing fingers at the other people. And that is a very common take. They're like, oh yeah, if only we voted better. No, it's all joke. It's all a show. It's not that the election is rigged, but the game is rigged. It's amazing to me that so many people see themselves as capable of becoming part of the elite. I think this is just something that people kind of possibly have to hope. At least people don't have much of a choice. Because why would you play the lottery? It makes no sense, And I do see in other directions that people might go for things that are kind of unlikely to happen, but it gives them hope, right? You can argue that I'm doing something like this. I'm doing the YouTube thing, right? Or they become musicians. I mean, this could be a strategy that might have a high payout if you really make it, but most are not gonna make it. Or they go for some kind of business. And I'm not saying that like you can have some kind of business that makes okay money, but like they usually like thinking about the big numbers here. So ultimately, you don't have much of a choice. You have to be. The only way to be a winner is to try to become the 1%, right? And if the better your position is, the less likely you actually want to rock the boat. Because let's say that you start rocking the boat. Now you might just fall out of it. Everything feels like a distraction away from this exactly. Yeah. I mean, what is like owning stuff? Like, I call dibs on dirt. What is money? But seriously, what is money? Like, suppose it was just you and me, right? Suppose I said like, I have like a fantasy points and you work for my fantasy points. Like, it would like, yeah, what is this? And that's exactly what money is. I can make more fantasy points. I can just print them or just like invest them, I suppose. It's just nonsense. I mean, it only makes sense if you have more fantasy points, at least the most, or you have the most fantasy points. Can you imagine what would happen if let's say that the younger generation said like, oh yeah, what money? I don't care about your money. And they're not taking it away. They just don't care, right? So you hold your, numbers on the screen, that you hold it. Can't even hold it. Or just have some papers and they don't care. You can argue that, your property is taken away. If you have property, it's like, oh my god, they're taking away my dirt that I bought with money from some other guy who just bought it from another guy who called dibs on it, who probably just killed someone for it. And that would be like owning dirt. And if suppose you own some dirt and someone didn't agree that you own some dirt and they just stood on your dirt and like, oh my god, I need to call out the guy who get violent with them, so they know that it's my dirt or something. Also, make sure to beat down the poor people so they know it's my money and they have to work for my money or something like that. Of course, they don't get to say what money is. I get to say what money is and I have it. And perhaps it's gonna be a strange detour, but once I joined some kind of an MMO clan where they use some kind of dragon points. Essentially, they just generated some dragon points. And also, they possibly just given out some dragon points for various reasons. Essentially, everyone who was a long-standing member of the clan already had a lot of dragon points. And the way the loot distribution worked is that you bid on the new items or the items that dropped that the party kind of fought over with these dragon points. But if you're just coming in, then everyone had like, thousands and hundreds of dragon points. It's like, you have nothing. I'm like, okay. It's like, yes, but if you stick around with this clan and like, then you're gonna have more dragon points one day. So, you know what I did? I left immediately. I had no interest in being part of the sucker system. But ultimately, this is our reality. Any new guy coming into this world maybe sees us and like, we have something, right? Whatever this having is. And honestly, they should not care. They should say, fuck me and you. Yeah. What's in it for me, really? Right? Because you gotta think along those lines. Along self-interest. The only reason people are in, so to speak, because they don't have a choice. Or not much of a choice. If they could just go to another world, they would pick that, right? No war but class war. But the point I was alluding to, that just changing the seats is not going to be satisfactory. And you would see this a lot, that if you apply the same system to other areas, you would essentially get the same results. The names are different, but the outcomes are the same. So suppose you went for some kind of, let's just rock the boat and only so I get to have it good and others do not. Then that would be not good enough, right? Is an inherently leftist talking point though? But I suppose, just by self-interest, suppose you have it better than most, then it would be in your interest to make it, at least keep it, as such. Yeah, Democrats and Republicans at the end of the day have always been two sides of the one coin. There to keep us divided. Yeah, it's never been left versus right. It's always been up versus down. As I said earlier, that if people had full control over what they vote for, and they would fully vote for their own interest, then many things in our world would be just utterly pointless. Suppose we even accepted money and property, why should others not come to take yours? To which the answer is they should. But of course, important to keep in mind that what does yours even mean? It's only yours if others kind of give it to you. And there's no other explanation for it. Because suppose you have like monopoly money, or you have some dirt that you call dibs on. How is it yours? It's only yours if others kind of act in a way that it's yours. If people are willing to trade for your fantasy points, which would be fundamentally against their interest, assuming that they have it worse. They might say like, oh yeah, fantasy points, I love this system, but one criteria, I say what fantasy points are, and you have nothing. Are you in? The wealthy elites put a lot of money and effort into keeping the masses divided, struggling to make ends meet, and blaming each other for their problems. Yeah. Most people are really just kept at a brink of despair. No doubt that they are messed in the head. You would be too, assuming that you are not in such situation. Can you imagine just like a very poor life? And I don't mean just money, but like you I guess money would be a main indicator of it, that you can't really have much. All you can possibly have is just like possibly rent one dilapidated room you can't afford anything. You have a terrible job where they treat you like trash because they can replace you easily. And you're probably an idiot too. You don't know anything. You never had a good education. You didn't have the time to get good. So it's a very unfortunate reality that you can just look at the human capital cost of this. But imagine how many great people we could have had, right? But no, it doesn't matter, right? If you're the guy who just calls dibs on the land, all you care about is that others fall in line. They just work your field. They are just idiotic slaves. You don't care about anything else. It could be a field of Einsteins. You don't care. You want them to feel helpless and be your slaves. And you probably pride yourself on your intelligence too, because like you got to have the easy life. You possibly positive and educated, whatever that means. You are better than them. You have it better than them. You possibly deserve it, right? That's what you say to yourself. Yet, let even suppose that you are past all the nonsense, all the self-delusion. You definitely don't want to switch. Even if people can somewhat agree on a common good, or we might even call it objective good, that doesn't mean that they're gonna care about others having it. So you might say that shelter, such a good thing, right? But doesn't mean you care about other people having shelter. And if you can just rent out your house, oh my god, so good, right? I can make money off the desperate. And perhaps an interesting point is that it almost doesn't matter in this new world what others think of you. I know this is a kind of a far-fetched claim because being loved does matter. But I mean, as long as you have the money, it doesn't matter, right? You can be absolutely hated. If you perished, if you met your end, it would be a national holiday. It does not matter. When you meet your end, possibly millions will celebrate it. But you have it good, right? Maybe your children will have it good. Their children will have it good. Maybe many millions. Entire country. Possibly the entire world is affected by you. Doesn't matter. You have it good. Anyway, back to it. They use the media, corporations, banks, politicians, both sides, celebrities, and law enforcement, all of which they control. Yeah. Police is kind of messed up. And I'm not gonna pick on the side of, like, possibly keeping some criminals in check. You can argue that that's a good thing. But when people are, like, rioting about, like, oh my god, they have it so bad, and the police shows up to just beat them down, like, what is happening here? The thing is, they're definitely not on the side of the people. They're on the side of the elite in such cases. But more and more people are beginning to see through it. Well, they have no choice. The country, and the thing is, this is kind of like the tragedy of the commons, because people keep pressuring the common workers more and more. And there is more of a pressure just to get to the top, just a rush to be an elite, I suppose. Because that is the only way you can have a good life. And yeah, I guess you have some kind of a rat race, because people don't think that they can change the system. So essentially, assuming that is the view you're going with, then your only out is to be one of the people who have it good. To be the landlord who has, 10,000 houses, right? It's like, oh my god, I have it so good, man. And there's no security. The only security is just to have more money, more power, more influence, have more stuff. Class consciousness is slowly tickling in, but not fast enough, in my opinion. But even if they see this, I would argue you can easily see this even when you're a kid. But do they believe that they can change it? Because I would argue that the average Joe is just so indoctrinated, then it's pretty much a lost cause. I thought about one way to possibly disrupt, but I probably shouldn't say it. But what you might end up seeing, what people might end up forcing the younger generations into, is that assuming they can't have a life at all, then they will start possibly just leaving to other places, right? And the thing is, you're kind of like eliminating the workers. I guess maybe the robot's gonna come in. But just to put it into perspective, like imagine if you're sitting between like some balls and like what are you waiting for? I suppose. Like let's say that you do not work in this theoretical scenario. But you have money and you have this house, let's call it that. But let's suppose others don't care, right? They're not taking it away, but you're literally just sitting in a house and no one cares about your money. No one is really taking it away your house, but you don't have no food nearby. You have no water, no electricity, no anything. Nothing really. You just have a stack of bricks. So your house is worthless, your land is worthless, your money is worthless, everything is worthless. It's only worth something because others are willing to play the game. Yet why should they? If others don't play the game, then it would be like having a house in the middle of the desert with nothing to support it. To everyone who is agreeing, does this mean you are ready to listen and break bread with people who believe differently than you do? Yeah, sure. I think we fundamentally need to up the sharing a lot. And if you just look at it through the lens of self-interest, then you might realize that people are more similar than not. It's very easy to say down with the rich, alright? But you're willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with people who see abortion as murder? That thing is, does it need to apply to others? Yet, even if you argue that people are divided by certain causes, aren't other causes come above it? So perhaps starving to death trumps abortion rights? Every time I see a post like this from Americans, one quick skim through what you're saying is literally the basis of left-wing theory. No, the Democrats are not left-wing, yeah. They would be too right-wing for, I guess, many countries. No, left-wing theory, from its liberal founding, has literally always about us versus the exploiters. Yeah, well, you fundamentally need a game where it's not about you having a good seat. Two of the quotes are over 100 years old. All history has been a history of class struggles, of struggles between exploited and exploiting, between dominated and dominating classes at various stages of social development. So you might make the argument that you can't have like total equality, and that might be okay, but you can have someone who has a little bit less and also have a little bit more, and that would be okay, I suppose. I guess it could be like the old pirate ships, I suppose. You know, where the captain got like 2 shares and everyone else got 1 or something. And if the captain tried to go for more, then they were not captain anymore and they were in the water and were missing a head. Do not be deluded by the abstract word freedom. Who's freedom? Yeah, freedom means nothing. Freedom almost always just means also permission, right? It's like, wow, so good to be free. Like, I'm allowed to be free in such ways. Freedom means nothing. The real word would be power, right? Because freedom, what? Like, does God need freedom? No, they have power, right? Real freedom would be power, right? I do the thing, and what you gotta do about it? Imagine if, let's say that I had no greater freedoms, but suppose I was a guy who had a nuke, right? And I'm just doing my thing, right? I'm just doing my thing. And like, you know, so, and my line would be that, you know, do what I want or get nuked. So in this case, I have no more freedom, but I do have a nuke, right? It's like, okay, would you say that me having a nuke would help to be more convincing? If you had a homeless man who were not otherwise more charismatic or whatever, but if they had a nuke, their chance, they would be the most popular, the most successful homeless man on the planet. They would be so successful at begging, and, you know, maybe they just say like, hey, I would like a house, please. Yes, of course, have a house right now. Yet, theoretically, this homeless man enjoys, or at least theoretically could enjoy, the same freedoms as anyone else. But realistically, not so much. And those who have it good can very much enjoy freedoms that most would not even dream of. It's not even really permitted, right? So there are rules and laws and something, but if you have the money, then I guess you have greater freedom. Even above what most people are theoretically allowed to have. So freedom in most contexts would mean that you're not actively being restrained and possibly allowed to do a few things. But whether you can actually do them is in doubt. Whose freedom? Not the freedom of one individual in relation to other, but freedom of capital to crush the worker? Yeah. In America, freedom of speech is kind of reinterpreted as freedom to use your money in politics. What the heck is that? But again, just keep in mind, if people could actually promote their interests, then it would make no sense for most of them to have a system like that. Social reforms are never carried out by the weakness of the strong, but always by the strength of the weak. Well, one can even argue that voting is kind of a waste of time, right? If you have to vote, then the answer is already no, and they're doing everything they can to stop it from happening. As a rule, large capitalists are Republicans and small capitalists are Democrats. But working men must remember that they are all capitalists, and that many small ones, like the fewer large ones, are all politically supporting their class interest, and this is always and everywhere the capitalist class. Okay? The only war is class war. Just over half of the voters decided to knowingly cast their lot with the same side as Christian nationalists and self-proclaimed bad boys. Just because the rich are fucking us doesn't mean we're all cool. Yeah, but gotta keep in mind that the regular Joe gets heavily affected by media and indoctrination. So basically they attend their indoctrination camp every day during their childhood, and their parents are most likely indoctrinated, and they blast indoctrination too. And when they watch YouTube right now, I guess they're gonna get some indoctrination as well. It's not really about what exactly they think, but what they think about. So just to make it super clear, so there is no misunderstanding, suppose you were in Japan, you would speak Japanese. I think people tend to underestimate how powerful propaganda is, how powerful media is, how powerful raising people with the right ideas is. It will become the language essentially you think in. And unless you really go out of your way to possibly challenge it, then that is all you can do. This is true. The problem is that there are hundreds or thousands of lines of division that have been created specifically for the purpose of distracting us from the particular line of division, which is the only one that matters. Yeah, but this game is just running for thousands of years, right? Let's even suppose that you are fully aware of what is happening. You cannot do anything, right? Or, okay, this is a little defeatist, but like, let's be somewhat realistic here. What can you really do? You can try to possibly unite people, and if you can do it, I would applaud you. But other than that, they're all most people can really do. And in a way, this kind of also fragments them further, is that they try to have it good, right? So you can have like 100 people. They all know this. They all know this, and there's nothing they can do. Or at least they don't think there's anything they can do, but try to have it good. The haves versus the have-nots take all this time, but what makes the haves have stuff? If I say I have dirt, then how do I have it? If I say I have like monopoly money, how do I have it? Either I would need to educate people that I have things and that they should respect it. I guess ideally both, or you will have to back it up with violence, right? Like, this is my dirt, and if you don't agree, then I'm gonna punch your face until you do. It might seem that we are past this, but that is all that is. And you might say that, oh yeah, but I have money or something. Like, but what if others don't care? It would be all meaningless. And why should they, right? Suppose I have like $1 trillion or more. Would you work for it? Would you like a fan of this system? Or you might say like, oh yeah, maybe not. Burn it all down. Stop blaming the left and right. We're all victims. Honestly, if the media was commonly owned, maybe this would go better. It is very important to own the common platforms where you can kind of control what people think and what people think about. Agreed, say we were to non-violently demand 3 crucial changes from the oligarchs. You don't need to demand anything. You just need to not care. Via something like tax, revolt, or general nationwide strike, what would those 3 demands be? You don't need to take away anyone's money. You just need to not care. But it is a little odd that essentially we live in a system that if anyone bothered to think about it for even a few minutes, it completely falls apart. And you can say I'm exaggerating, and I am. It's probably not gonna take 3 minutes. Probably one will suffice. And the problem is, the oligarchs own the media and people are dumb. Yeah, people kind of on dumb on purpose. Unfortunately. As long as they are struggling, they want someone to blame, and somehow they have been convinced it's immigrants and trans people. Yeah, but that's kind of because they're dumb, right? Or at least many are dumb. And immigrants is something that they can understand, I suppose. That, someone comes in and now they increase the competition for roles, right? But you gotta ask yourself, why do you need a role in the first place? Why, when the role becomes automated, or no longer required, I suppose, why don't you just go home and you're retired with 6 figures? The oligarchs are in big trouble when common people finally realize it's them who are the problem. That's why they will try to make an example of Luigi. But the thing is, this has been going on for all of history. And there have been many people who just spent their entire life, arguably wasted, at trying to educate the people. And they were total losers. At least how society would define being a loser. So the more you adopt this kind of sharing mindset, the more likely you're gonna not have any power yourself to possibly push for change. Yet, even if you can organize, what can you really do? Because most people are still preoccupied by their present reality. And if those who have it better are like, okay, I know the game is rigged, assuming that they are reasonable. Usually they are deluded, but they don't want to rock the boat. And suppose you had 2 houses and $1 million plus in savings. Would you want to rock the boat? No, of course, you're nothing compared to those who have it really good, but you kind of have it okay. And a very common thing is that people tend to hate those who are weak. And you see this a lot. And cheer those who are strong. If you're going with such a simple language. You see that those who are high status, well, at least it's kind of the same thing here. They just cheer, right? It's oh yeah, if someone playing some sports, it's yes, they're celebrated. If they're singing or something, oh my god, they're so good. Let's suppose those who are down in their luck, let's say that they live in rundown apartments, or they're on the streets. It's oh my god, get away from me, you scum, you the homeless man. We hate that guy, and they probably deserve to be there, right? And those who are on the opposite edge are probably deserve to be there too, right? Yeah, because the world is fair, right? Well, oh well. And back to the plan A of trying to get rich and watch the world get worse every day and more divided.